Well, Raleigh figures they gave him a pencil and a bottle of water. This is kind of
wow.
Yeah,
I brought
my
good to go.
Very great.
So what are we doing?
Have a seat, sir. I'll introduce you. I'll do the whole thing.
Ooh. This is like 250.
Yeah. Oh, this is nice. This is like show and tell. Yeah, probably a little bit more actually. Great eye. 60. Great. All right. So you're now live. G5? Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, folks. This is Trading Card Therapy, episode number 16. Have an esteemed guest with me today. And not only a longtime friend, but actually our first guest ever on Trading Card Therapy.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why we chose to do Trading Card Therapy episode 16 from here, we do it once a week. Usually on Wednesdays, we upload it to the Podcast Universe on Fridays, so you can get it wherever you get your favorite podcasts. But the reason why we decided to do it live from the show is we're kind of looking at it as like adventures in baseball card shows. So in other words, we're kind of giving people who can't make the show a little sneak peek behind the curtain. Or actually, exactly, because originally I was going to do it on Friday morning. I'm like, oh, that's kind of boring for them.
Yeah, nothing's happened yet.
Nothing's happened yet.
Okay.
So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you, and then you can tell folks a little bit about yourself. So this is my good buddy Derek Grady from Heritage Auctions. You are out of Texas, meaning the company, but you yourself are actually based in Pennsylvania.
Correct. So right around the Bethlehem, Pennsylvania area. Okay. So, and I travel a lot for consignments.
Awesome. Well, tell people about consignments and what that is and what you guys are looking for.
So for our card catalogs, which we have about 6 a year, we're looking for cards above, say, $500 or higher, anywhere from $500 to $1 million. So we're looking for. Okay, and we have consignment directors on the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest. We have them everywhere.
I've heard one of them. His name's Lee.
Lee? Yeah. Lee is kind of like my partner in crime on the East Coast.
He's great.
Dan Imler in California. We have Chris Nerat in Chicago. We have a bunch of guys. Tony Geezy, who's here. I think he's hugged everybody in the show so far. Tony is here hugging people. Hopefully he's at the booth and we didn't just lose our whole inventory, but it's a potential. You never know.
Yes.
We have a lot of Rob Rosen. We have Pete Calderon, vintage card experts in Dallas. Dallas is the hub. Yeah. Okay, that's where we have our 500-person facility. It's like an Apple campus.
So they can send their cards to you at your office in Texas.
Yes.
Or, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you had, let's say, a six-figure collection of $50,000 or something like that,
sure.
You would travel to folks.
Travel, yes.
Which is great. I also wanted to bring up something to the audience that they may not know, Derek. I know myself, I've been kind of looking to you and trying to figure out how Just Collect and Heritage can work together better on consignments.
Sure.
Selling sets. So one of the things I think our audience would love to hear about is, let's say you have a run of sets, and even though Just Collect buys and sells, you're like, you know what? I want it in a catalog. I want my name on it, and I want to see it sold set by set. I know what you can do for folks, but I want you to tell folks what you could do for them in terms of picking out the cards for grading and really managing the whole process, because it can be very cumbersome for people and quite difficult because TSA is frankly not only backed up, but very limited on their services.
Yeah, the grading services have not been our friends right now. It is the worst time in the history of grading, and nobody would have thought a pandemic, which is disastrous for the world, could be so lucrative in the grading business, where people, you've seen the attendance. Let me just sidebar. The attendance at this show has been record setting, right? Friday and Saturday, I've never seen it. You can't even look down the aisle. There's so many people. And that being said, there's that many more people submitting to grading companies, and they can't hire enough graders. So here we are with crazy backlogs for a year or so. So we get some breaks based on our volume of submissions to the grading companies, and now I can get onto the sets. So if we got in a set run, we have several different venues to sell. In the catalog, we want a set that's, say, mostly X or better, okay? Especially in the 50s. And then when you get into the 60s, we want to see some near mint cards to be in the catalog. If it's not, it's our Sunday night sales, which is great. But thank you. I love that you're a great loyal friend and customer.
Yeah, that's great.
And so what we do as graders is we go through, and if we find a low pop comment that looks like a 9 or a 10, we're going to pull it out and send it in for you to grade it. we don't expect our clients to understand what every card's worth and every set and the rare cards and the tough cards and the short prints, low pop rookie, Hall of Fame rookie cards. Okay, some are worth grading, some are not. It can be some auction companies, I'm not going to name names, are just going to grab a handful of cards and send them in because they don't have expert graders on staff. We have 2 former professional graders. Well, I still want to call myself a professional grader. I just didn't lose the title because I left, right?
Of course. Well, many of our audience, even though they may know you now as D69, and as you're heavily involved in heritage, they may not know what you started off at all those years ago at SGC. So let's cover it.
So in 1998, I was there when SGC first started as a vice president and a senior grader, and then within a couple of years, I became the head grader. And stayed there for 4 or 5 years, and then left to go to an auction company, and came back again because I missed it. I was there for another few years.
Obviously, now those guys are great.
Yeah, and now I'm with Heritage for the last 10 years, which is the longest I've ever been anywhere, and just signed a new 6-year deal. So,
congratulations.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so now I can work 7 days a week for another 6 years, so it's perfect. But I try to go to the Super Bowl, so that's like my vacation. So we'll see.
I like seeing the pics on social media.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Hey, I have one follower. Yes.
Shout out to Scotty Heilman from SGC. Yeah. He's a gem amongst gems.
Will he watch this?
Well, I'm going to send it to him afterwards.
Okay, so he will watch it.
So what's cool is it's live now, but we'll upload it in a few days so that people can watch it in the future.
Okay.
So that's why we're trying to explain to people a little about heritage.
Scott, get back to grading. Keep the turnaround times moving along.
Move it.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
In terms of sets, I can see how it can be really valuable for someone who, even if you are a serious collector, I could tell you as someone who does this professionally, meaning the buying and selling of it, it is quite cumbersome to go through a set and simply just verify it's complete.
Yes.
Grade the top couple cards. We got our buddy Hank back there. We know how slow he is doing.
Oh, very slow. Hank he used to be a grader. Now he's a dealer. I don't even know what he does.
He likes to consider himself a savant.
Yeah, and he may have a hot dog stand in New York City. I don't know. But he'll do anything. Keith. Okay, yeah. So, but no, honestly, it's very cumbersome, and that's how we earn our money, to be honest. Because everybody thinks, look how much commissions you're making for players' premium, and it's like, trust me, sets are much more difficult than a graded card.
Sure.
Okay. And there's no question that you want your experts to go through your sets. And also, I want to say, not every set is for us.
Sure.
Okay. And Just Collect, I know Leighton does buy sets and offers fair prices. Otherwise, you wouldn't be buying as much stuff as you do if you weren't fair. Okay. And a lot of dealers aren't as fair. So Leighton is on one of our preferred lists of, if your stuff isn't for us, we will refer you to Leighton. Okay. And again, you don't put a gun to anybody's head to sell to you. You make a fair offer, and they either take it, they don't, or they negotiate, right?
Exactly.
But sometimes when you come to a show, there's dealers that just make you lowball offers. You've always been fair, I know that. So we recommend to sell if it's not for us, because maybe it's a mid-grade set run from the 70s or 60s.
It's missing 17 cards.
Missing 17
They're not really going to fit,
yes.
Necessarily a call-up, it's 2 go for Sunday night. And all of a sudden, you're like, you know what? You should probably talk to whether it be your friends at Just Collect or another professional dealer.
Sure.
Find out what they can offer you and pay. And listen, I remember being in the auction business all these years ago. Sometimes people say, Derek, I just don't want to be bothered. I'm okay if you brought it all up.
Yep.
And you do a near set run from the 50s and 60s all together. Yep. In which case, you're going to have dealers like myself actively bid, which is still a very fair way to sell it if you didn't want to piecemeal it out. I do see a great question from the community I wanted to ask you. Is there any hopes of getting back to realistic grading turnarounds, do you think, in 2022?
God, man, I would absolutely love to see it. It's a stain right now on the hobby when we're asking people to buy this new product and they want to submit cards and they really get excited to get them back, whether it's either one of the big 3 grading companies, okay? They get excited to get them back and they get really, it's just not fun. It's fun when you can submit and get cards back. I even believe if the grades are off, they just can't wait to get the package, okay? I don't want the grades to be off either, but what we're in crisis right now with PSA, SGC, and Beckett are both desperately trying to hire graders. Heritage, I'm trying to hire graders. Everybody wants to hire graders. Okay?
So there's a shortage of human capital as far as grading.
And also, it would be, and I don't think, to the question, it's fair for the grading companies to say, well, if you pay $95 a card, we'll get them back to you. It's like, wait a second. The card's a $20 rookie card. I want to get it graded. You shouldn't pay $95 a card. You're nuts to do that. Look, they're not telling you they're going to give you 10s. You can get streamlined on all 9s, okay? And now you're just like, now I just wasted $1,000. They need to come up with, again, it's employees. How do they find them? How do they find graders? I've had a hell of a time doing it. So is the president of PSA, foreman at SGC, back at I talk to everybody. So I want to be optimistic and say the turnaround times will get better in 2022. But if the submissions keep getting an avalanche of submissions and no new talent in there to grade, it's going to stay backlogged for a while. But I would still recommend not paying a crazy number on cards that aren't worth getting graded. Okay.
No, I 100% agree with you. It's not only bad for your wallet, but it's a kind of situation where I think this is why we're seeing some of the newer grading companies pop up. Folks like, let's say, ISA or CGS and other grading companies. I think in some cases, even though folks, of course, want their card to sell for the most, there's some people who literally just want to slap.
Yes, and I think, and I can't speak to, CSG, that's the former, they owned SGC at one point. They just got back into it. They got some of the Beckett graders. I'm sure they do a fine job. I can't say, Kuntz, one of our friends, is ISA. He knows what he's doing. And as far as what the resale value of those cards are, I can only tell you that SGC, Beckett, and PSA have a track record of 20-some years. But there is always going to be new people into this. Who's going to survive? I'll never forget when SGC opened as, say, the number 2 grading. It was PSA, then SGC, right? Shortly thereafter, there were 30 grading companies. Pro, USA.
Oh my God, FMG.
FGA.
Yeah.
Literally grading cards in their basement with no standards. The trimmed and altered cards were a mess, okay? And that chased people out of the hobby because they thought if it's encapsulated, they can buy it. And then they'd send it in and say, okay, I know this is a Pro 10, so I can get an SGC 5. No, it's trimmed. I can't put it in a 5. I can't do anything. So what people learned quickly was stick to PSA, SGC, and Beckett real quick. And then the Pros and USAs and CTAs and all these companies are out of business, right? I think someone like ISA, they're not going anywhere to my knowledge. CSG is not going to go anywhere with that company. They have comics, they do coins, they're in it to stay. Some of these guys grade just via scan. You forget it. Okay, anybody can do it. I guess I can start a grading. Leighton, new business venture. I'm an expert grader. I'll put my talent up against anybody.
Yeah,
and we'll just grade via scans and make a bunch of money.
I'll do it from the beach in Aruba.
There you go. We'll just look at scans and put a number on it, right? Don't have to see it in person. Just, it looks like a 10 to me. We can make everybody happy. No, honestly, it doesn't hurt to try some of the grading companies, especially at a fair price. Like, send some cards to ISA, send some cards to CSG.
You know what I would do? I would start with I'm making it up.
Yeah.
1990 Pro Set Emmett Smith rookie. Right? Meaning in a 10, it's $150 a PSA.
Oh, there you
maybe in a 9, it's only 20. But with the new grading company, it's only $10. At the end of the day,
the
the card raw is only 5 or $10.
Yeah.
All right, your downside's limited. If you get a 10, maybe you pop it on eBay for $49.95 or $74.95. It's half the price of a PSA 10.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, maybe things start to get traction.
Yeah.
But I think it is a nice choice for, like my buddy Liddy's here at the show. He doesn't actively collect cards, so you might take some of his old childhood cards and grade them for $8-10.
Yeah.
Not caring about what grading company it is. Just want some slab. He wants to give them to his sons and be able to preserve them.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, and I do believe. So PSA just lowered the regular service to 95.
Oh,
so when that's big news. I just saw it. Well, I saw it on Instagram.
All right. It's almost big news. We're going to verify.
Big news. I'm not sure just yet.
Well, that's good.
But
Under 100 is
but I think, under 100. But to your point on the Emmett Smith, 95 versus 10. I'm choosing the 10.
So, very much so.
There's no way I'm submitting that.
Or to be fair, and a very good question, someone's asking, given the problem with the grading turnaround times, do you believe there's a rising market for high-end raw cards?
Yes, I love it. If you can find people that grade the cards accurately, and you have
Greg Morris on eBay.
Greg Morris is, again, I've never bought from him, but I have heard, and there's people following his business model, that he has some graders that do a very good job describing the cards accurately. I love that model. This is the whole key to this. Being able to grade whether it's a 48 Bowman card and knowing it's not trimmed, and looking at it front and back, not missing the back creases, not missing any alterations, and standing behind your product. If they can do that, because I used to be an SCD subscriber in the 80s, and I ordered 56 baseballs, one time from a guy in Hawaii. He said they're all Yearman. I'm like, done. I will buy your 50 count lot. I get them. There's creases. I kept 2 cards, and I was like, I called him. I was just like, this is insulting. What are you doing? Like, as long as yes, high-end raw cards. I am doing this at Heritage too. I don't have time with every consignment. As a grader, I can grade these cards Yearman to mint and mint sometimes, and just sell them raw. I don't need to send in some 88 clear rookie cards.
A Reggie Miller to
hope to get a 9. To even if I pay $25 at SGC or 20, whatever it is at SGC, that gets $150. That's a no. PSA is whatever. That's a no. And if I just call it mint or near mint to mint, we stand behind it. We have graders grading the stuff. So Greg Morris is doing a good job, and to all I know, he is. Okay, and there's going to be other people copying that model. And there is a refund policy on eBay, right?
Yeah, there is.
Policy. And you know how to grade. So anything just collect sells, you're going to stand behind it.
I would tell you, we had almost no returns on eBay for ungraded cards, but we haven't been selling ungraded cards in recent years because our business model has changed.
Okay.
But I think it's great that as the hobby has been having, let's just call it, some of these issues with the grading companies, that we all collectively, as dealers, collectors, auction houses, investors, so on and so forth, that we're all adapting.
Yes.
I'll be honest, when I first heard about the news and I looked at thousands of cards that were on the verge of being submitted, how upset I was. I thought, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all this. And you know what? You just adapt.
Yep.
And you change. And whether it be you're an entrepreneur, whether it be you're a big auction house like Heritage, whether it be you're somewhere in the middle, and there's a lot of folks, in the middle, we all have to adapt in all, walks of life. One of the questions I want to ask you, of course, I'm trying to ignore the 2 pieces of eye candy I have right in front of me. But I've noticed this, and I wanted to bring this up to your attention because we're both kind of card nerds. I believe, I have folks ask me this all the time, where's their opportunity, right? Where can you buy? I never like to give investment advice. However, I think one cool thing with the rising prices of vintage across the board, that if you go look at certain authentic cards, and these are cards that would grade, let's say, SGC authentic, PSA authentic, so it could be trimmed. Maybe it has a punch hole. Maybe someone tried to add color to it.
Or just minimum size.
Which
I prefer, because it came right up the back.
To be fair, yes, that would be the best.
Yeah.
Great point. But I think that there's a nice opportunity out there to, let's say, add a Babe Ruth card or a Ty Cobb card or a Mickey Mantle card that would maybe be out of your budget.
Yep.
I believe that as the hobby continues to evolve, in 5 years, in 10 years from now, when there's not enough 33 body roofs for all the demand out there, you're going to be, if you were smart and you bought the nice authentics, I believe financially you're going to have a nice return. It may take some time.
I totally agree with you. Here's why. A lot of the new people coming in literally look at us like we were idiots. How are these cards only this much of Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb?
Sure.
So all those lower grade examples, forget about the high grade has gone through the roof, the low grade has also gone through the roof because they're saying, wait a minute, I want Babe Ruth and Ty Cobbs. They're buying Zion Williamson's is great, but some of these people are saying, wait a minute, how can I get a Gowdy Ruth for
the same money as
this doesn't make sense. How can I buy T206 Cobbs for a couple grand or whatever in 3s? No, those days are over. But now, whatever you can get them at is order. I don't care if it's a Koufax rookie. Some of these iconic rookies.
You're right.
Okay, any of these iconic rookies.
It's not eye appeal.
Yeah, eye appeal is huge. Centering is everything to people. Forget about, if it's centered, I see people that would rather have centered 3s than cards that are like X plus that aren't centered.
It's funny, so I have a post coming out of my Instagram account, which I know you follow me.
I do.
Leighton_Sheldon. So I recently got back Clemente rookie, which I feel years ago at PSA would have been a 4, 4.5.
Okay.
I got a 3. I have a PSA 4 up in a set break on VintageBreaks.com.
And the 3 looks nicer.
And the 3, to me, I would take every day of the week. Yeah. I'm going to ask Instagram. I'm going to ask them to vote. And to me, I think a lot of people, I think it's going to be 70, 30, 80, 20. People are going to want the 3.
I see it all the time. Buy the card, not the holder. I've been saying that since 1998. As long as it's graded by a reputable company, look at the card with your own eyes. There are 7s and 8s that are dog poo-poo. I won't say the S word on here. There are ugly cards that were graded early on, and some of the stuff coming out now is so tight, as you know, There are 8s that could have been 10s a few years ago. I mean, they are really, the grading companies are tight. And as a grader, I can tell you, when you get buried and backed up and you have to fly through stuff, you go conservative, unfortunately. I wish you didn't, but you do. Everybody does. Because graders don't get fired for undergrading. Because you can't divine why the grader undergraded.
That's a great point, Derek.
You get fired for overgrading, not undergrading, okay?
That's probably the most interesting point that I've really heard in the last, I would say, several weeks. And the reason why I say that is because even though, like, I knew it,
yeah.
I never put the words together and like, wait a minute, this is why, of course, it happens.
Because they're so busy and they have to get X amount
of
stuff out.
And they can't get fired for undergrading.
You're not getting fired for undergrading. I would probably, if I kept, because here's the thing.
Well,
no, I'm saying I would want to get rid of people because undergrading's terrible also. I think, and overgrading is terrible because anybody can see that.
We need accurate.
Undergrading, we need accurate grading, but it's harder for approvers. So at SGC, I verified people's stuff. I graded stuff, but I also proofed stuff. It's harder to tell when you need to get orders out the door and you see an 8 on something, let's say a 9, and you're looking at it and tilting it frontwards and backwards. You're looking through the holder to see, why isn't this a 9? Very difficult. When something is an 8, but they put it in a 9, and you see 2 touch corners, I do crack it out immediately.
You instantly know.
And you don't have time to divine what the grader was seeing when he undergrades. You just assume he saw some flaw, so that's why it's an 8, and you just make sure they're not overgraded. Nobody really has time to make sure they're not undergraded, and that's a flaw in the system. And you want to tell graders, go in with the highest grade. But I remember when I was even grading modern invoices. Now, this is a different modern now where people can get 10s across the board. But even with 80s stuff, I would kind of start at 9. You shouldn't. You should start at 10. So what I would do as a grader is go back through, man, if I put a ton of 9s on stuff, I was like, I think I just killed this guy. Let me go back through and see if I can find any 10s. Because this guy just got 42 9s and I have no 10s on anything. Let me reevaluate that, because the proofer, when he's looking at them, very difficult to see through the holder. Again, that's an issue right now.
Well, hopefully it gets addressed. I did want to show off the 2 amazing cards you have here. And are they in your current auction?
These are going to be in the January auction. If you want to go ahead and show them. That's the highlight of the show.
So this is unbelievable. It is not only a super high grade and worth a lot of money. I mean, you can tell by the smile on my face, man. I love this card. It is a 1961 Fleer.
There we go.
Wilt Chamberlain rookie, PSA 9, dead nut centered, razor sharp corners, incredible eye appeal. Look at that color. So did this walk into the show here at Valley Forge, or did you have an appointment?
It would have, because we typically don't want appointments like this walking past the murderer's row in front, trying to, hey, what's in the bag, what's in the bag?
Sure.
You know, hey, show me that, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. This was a Heritage client that we met on Thursday night, and this will be a featured card in our January card auction.
That's great.
It's a $250,000 card, and this is a really pretty 9 too. Probably not a 10, but it is one of the nicest Chamberlain, literally packed full. Gorgeous.
Oh, I 100% agree with you.
Gorgeous card.
I would say, without doing any measuring of centering, assuming the specs were there, putting under a light, really, at first glance, it's only this print mark.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, if I was, well, I know it's not Joe Orlando now, but let's say if I was Nat talking to us at a PSA, getaway in Vegas, I would say, well, listen, we can't put this card in the 10
because of that. Yeah.
But I mean, really, sans that, this card is effectively as nice as you can get.
Yeah, it's one of the nicest Chamberlain 9s I've ever seen, honestly.
That's great. And so you're giving it an estimate of $250, but correct me if I'm wrong, but when this kind of quality goes up for auction, it's not crazy to think this could sell for $379,000.
Oh, no.
Because it's a very low pop, and we also know not every 9 is created equal.
Correct. Yeah, I could see somebody upgrading the 9 to this time.
And potentially, off the price of that 9, which goes for good money, maybe swap out, get this higher quality, and sell their 9 in the future.
For sure. And we love doing that.
Yeah. So the next card, is this something that walked into the show as well?
Yeah, this was just another consignment. This came in. Yep.
So I'm going to look quickly before I show it to the audience.
Well, I didn't even look at it that way.
Try to figure out, okay, so I think I figured out why it's a 3.
Okay.
There's some sort of, let's just call it residue right there.
I mean, it's got nice eye appeal. It's not dead centered, but it's really nice color.
Derek, that color.
For a 3, it does look. It looks okay. There's a crease right there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there is a crease, but it hides very well, obviously. So, wow. I would have missed. So you got to tilt it in the light. So remember to tilt your cards in the light.
Yep.
Because if you tilt it, you can catch creases.
What kind of light do you recommend our collectors that are listening to use at home?
I'll be honest. Just anything. I like one with a power source that you can turn up and down.
So do I.
Okay?
Yep.
You don't want just a I mean, again.
I like a halogen.
Yes, a halogen for sure.
Yep.
And you can buy, I see graders using these $20 lights they buy at Target.
Totally.
It doesn't even matter.
Yeah,
I just like to turn the power source up and down, get the different shades of light, the shadows. But if you tilt the cards front and back, that's how you catch these creases that hide. So this crease goes diagonal, kind of almost, but it's very different. I didn't see it straight on, but this is a 3 that would probably do very well because the eye appeal is really nice on it. It's not dead center, but the color is really
Check
nice.
out this beauty. 1952 tops, Mickey Mantle SGC3. It's got the eye appeal of a solid 5. Now, it isn't well centered. You may not be able to tell on the screen. The color is tremendous. The corners are very indicative of a card that would be a 5. There's only a minor crease in the front, which you really can't see even after you look at it. And there's a spot on the back right here, like a surface abrasion, which maybe you could see a little bit. But this card's probably going to sell more in like the 3.5 to 4 range, if I had to guess.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think the estimate's around 50 or 60 grand, and we just let it. That's where we estimate the minimum bid will be a quarter. At Heritage, everything is a quarter of the estimate. So it's going to open up at say 15 grand, and it's just going to go. Whatever it sells, where it sells for.
Great. Now, before we wrap up here, where can our audience register for Heritage Auctions? Where can they sign up today?
That is simple. www.ha.com.
Great. And if they register to bid with you, do they automatically get one of those amazing catalogs?
If they just call client services, and they can 877 Heritage. Great client services. You can probably email them as well. I don't think it just happens organically.
Sure.
If you just sign up, because some people, when you sign up for Heritage, it's free, but you also get pricing data the whole way back to the 80s.
You stole my thunder. Your pricing data we were talking about this weekend.
Okay.
Your app is amazing.
In any venue. So if you're a member of Heritage, we have antique dealers that don't use us for anything, but they use our pricing data. Any sports item we've ever sold, the price is there. Any coin, any comic, any rock and roll stuff, anything that we have a department for, which is like 35 departments, art. As long as you're a member of Heritage, you use it as a price realized database, if
Absolutely.
nothing else.
For fun research, you're going on an antique trip with the wife and you're checking some stuff out. You're like, I see an old rock and roll piece. I would definitely check it out.
Absolutely.
HA.com. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up here. This is Trading Card Therapy, episode number 16. Look for it wherever you get your favorite podcasts, Apple, Spotify, so on and so forth. This is my good buddy, Derek Grady, now known as D69 in the hobby. Derek, thank you so much. Congrats on the new contract. And I'm very excited to see you for the many years to come here.
Happy to be here. Join you anytime.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much. Oh, you can leave these here.
Okay, no problem.
We'll take care of them.
Just take it.
One last shot at these beauties. Thanks so much for showing these with us today.
No problem.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys, we're about to hop off and hop back on. All right, back.
Thanks, everybody. It was a good time.
I'm going to go back to my